Okay, welcome back then. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. I told you, I think I wanted to do something about shapes and structures. Because I think is one of the, I mean, you already passed that point, but is one of the, I think, most important things to understand at the beginning. Just simply because of how Hive works, right? Because you need to keep everything connected, so some structures are inherently like they're intrinsic to the game. You can't do without them. The game doesn't work without these shapes. Okay, so this was the game that I seen the other day. It was still part of the Fair Play Cup. Big Meat against Quadlibet. You probably have heard or you've seen some games by Quadlibet. He's been world champion 4 times. So before Judoka, and then Judoka reached the record for. He also doesn't play that often. Maybe at least not anymore. But he actually played always very well during the World Cup, and then the rest of the year he doesn't play much on BGA, or yeah, he just plays a few events here and there. But he's still like he's always in shapes, kind of. Anyway, no, because there were some interesting shapes that I wanted to look at. Well, let's take the sound off because I don't want the sound to kill anyone. So I actually wanted to start with a simple, I mean, you know already that, but I hope see things in a different way, maybe. So the most important thing is, like not the most important, sorry, but the basic structure of Hive is basically the elbow. That's the basic structure from which everything else exists, basically. The elbow, which is like the three pieces at angle to each other. Can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Okay. So the most important thing to understand is this. Everything basically comes from this. It's a combination of different elbows together. Or the other thing is structures in line. The structures in line, they're a bit more boring. And yeah, you don't have that many. Or if you have them, there is a reason why they like you want to have them or you don't want to have them. But most of the time you have to form this elbow. And the important thing is the piece in the middle of the elbow, right? So whenever you fill the elbow here, then the middle piece escapes. So if you see the whole game like this, it becomes easier for everyone to, I think, to understand what to do, what not to do. These ones are usually called trigger points. So whenever a piece gets there, the other piece in the elbow can escape, right? The central piece of the elbow is the one of the player that has the trigger point, basically, that owns, let's say, the trigger point. Because whenever your opponent gets the trigger point, then you can escape. Let me, yeah. Then the other piece can escape, and it leaves the piece stuck in the middle of the elbow. But I mean, you already know that. But I just want to point it out because everything comes from there. And then there are many other structures that come that you've already seen: the gate, the pocket, the rings itself. They all combination of more elbows together, basically. That's it. But of course, they're more complicated. Or the bidirectional pin, where there are different elbows, 3 elbows together. So this is the typical gate that is formed to defend. And also Judoka calls this Hex Trap in his book. Daimer, you're reading his book, right? So you probably
Yep.
came across this structure already. And well, the reason why I call it Hex Trap is basically what we said, that there are two trigger points here, here and here. If you fill the triangle space, then the ladybug will escape because of a ring. And if you fill the X, the ladybug can still escape, but because of the elbow. This is always true, even before, of course. But here we add an extra trigger point, which is the triangle. And also we create a gate, which means that X space it's harder to reach for pieces that cannot jump over. So spiders and ants cannot access there. So the position is almost symmetric, but white decided to have this trigger point here, like to add an extra basically defensive structure, and black decided to go with a pin in line, so no elbow. I mean, there is an elbow here, technically, but it's not that important because the mosquito doesn't, like, you don't want the mosquito to be part of the elbow, right? Because it will get stuck here, so it's not that important. So what's the difference between these two? White is using a more cautious defensive approach, but the interesting thing of this Hex Trap is that how many elbows you see here?
I guess 3 elbows.
There are 3 elbows, which means that once you fill this in the middle, you actually free three pieces. Like whenever someone gets in here, all these 3 pieces, the white ladybug, the black ladybug, and the black hand, gets free. So of course, in this case, like of course, white played this because it wants to free the ladybug. So whenever black reach this triangle point first, but at the same time it will also free the black hand. So there is a downside to it, which is that at the moment is like it's doing a favor to white. But if this gets filled, then also the black hand is free, and so black can use this in his favor. So if black can put place a hopper here at some point, well, I use the same triangle, but yeah, if he plays a grasshopper here and then it gets into the Hex Trap, that would free all 3 pieces, the white ladybug for sure, but at the same time it will free at least one of the 2 black pieces. So again, you always have to look at what's inside the elbow, like in the middle. In this case, like instead the pin inline is more static, and it's more long term. So there's also this difference usually between, I don't know if you've seen it already, between a pin inline or a pin and elbow. The pin inline is usually more long term, simply because you cannot replace this pin with another piece, or if you do it, it's less effective. So let's say black wants to replace the pin, which means using another piece, less valuable usually, to free the ant here. The problem is that now we have another elbow here, and the white hand is in the middle, which is again is good for the player. Like the elbows are good for the player who has the middle piece, right? So actually black has spent 2 moves, held down this maneuver, but in the long run it's going to be bad for black. So black wants to keep the ant here. He doesn't really want to do this replacement. In some situation it could work, but in the long run would be problematic. At least that's how I see it. maybe some other player would say different, but I think this is the way. So the end game goes on, and now we have another, well, two sort of another structure that is very common, that is the pocket. This is also one of the most important, that again is basically two elbows together, same thing. Of course, what's in the middle of the of the two elbows is what matters the most, like the queen and the ladybug. They form the structure of the hive, but they're also the ones that they can potentially get free at some point. So that's why the ladybug or the grasshopper are often used in the middle, right? You don't start with a spider. You don't start. It's much less common to start with a spider, or let alone an ant. You want the chance at some point of one of these two to get free. And of course, the advantage of the pocket, like the main point of the pocket is, well, the Big Me played an ant, but he could have played a beetle, which is the main point of pockets already. Well, you've seen it. You want to put a beetle here so your opponent cannot pin it. There's no way for an opponent to pin it. You're actually like investing 4 pieces to create a pocket. So the question is also, is it worth it? The point is that it wouldn't be worth it if you use different pieces. What I mean is that the queen and the pillbag, for example, they don't need mobility. Like, you don't need the queen and the pillbag really to be able to move, right? They are not the pieces that you use to pin other pieces. So you're basically investing 2 pieces out of 4 that they don't need to move anyway. So they can form the core structure of the hive. So that is fine. If you used other pieces, then it would be a bigger investment. And the ladybug as well, as we said. Yeah, it's a good piece, but it's good to keep it for later, sort of, to be prepared, to get free at some point later on. But yeah, they didn't play the beetle straight away, but I mean, the point is the same. It just continued to he made an even bigger pocket, but usually the pocket is just simply these 2 elbows together. Eventually he will put a beetle here, there, sorry. Then there is another structure actually that I wanted to show. I don't know how judoka use it, as I calls it, if he has a jargon for that. I usually call it pseudopocket. Okay, there is a grasshopper here, but at some point there will be a beetle. A pseudopocket, which is basically a pocket in the like has the same objective, the same goal of a pocket, but the structure is different. So I call it pseudopocket. Can you see where is the pseudopocket?
The queen, grasshopper, bug.
Yes. So there's another elbow. In this case, it's a pseudopocket because you cannot pin a piece into this space because it's a trigger point again. So you would form a ring and then the ladybug would be free. So yeah, the beetle goes in there. So of course white cannot stop it. If he did something like this, that would be great for black, of course. And now these 2 ants are stuck. This ant is free. I mean, maybe the situation is complicated. They still have to solve a few things. I'm not say it's winning for black, but what was the point of white to move? So yeah, you have this pseudopocket. Of course, pseudopocket come in different forms, so it's not like a shape per se, right? It's more a function. It's more an objective, but it's good to keep it in mind. What else I wanted to show you? again, you see, whenever you make a pin, you basically have to choose if you want a straight pin or elbow pin, right? So basically what you're saying is, when you make a move, do I want to give my opponent the chance to free that piece or not? I mean, said in this way, you would think it's always worth it to pin in line. But there are, of course, disadvantages of pinning in line. One of the disadvantages is that you don't control all the spawn points, or you don't control the same spawn points. Like if you pin in line here, white would have this spawn point, right? But in the long run, this beetle and mosquito will be stuck for longer. So actually depend on what's the value of the pieces here. Beetle and mosquito are pretty valuable, so I will probably have pinned in line. And it's very hard to neutralize the pillbug without mosquito and the beetle, right? So I would have pinned this way. And the other important thing is, once black makes this this choice, right? It could shift the pin later on, right? But what white does is actually just blocking the ant straight away. And this is because exactly what we said before. So in the beetle is in the elbow. So if you want to free the beetle, you have to keep the structure fixed. The other side of the coin is that the ant is also in a elbow. Sorry. So potentially black could feel this elbow and free the ant first, and then the spider cannot rearrange. In this case, it's not very black could play this, but then white would shift the pin and then pin two pieces at the same time. And actually now we have another structure that I wanted to talk about. That is this C. I don't know if there is a name for it. You can say it's a pocket. Like it has the same shape of a pocket, but it's not a pocket. So I think we should have a different name for it. And I don't know if Judoka has, but has already coined a new term for it. But let's call it C shape. Let's say C shape is a more generalized version of a pocket. So the pocket is a specific subset of a C shape. If all the pieces are of the same color, then the space in the C shape is actually a pocket. In this case, it's not, because you have two black pieces and two white pieces. But again, what's in the middle is what matters. So before playing this, you could have this in mind. You should have, in principle, this in mind. Since we have both a black and a white piece, this means that whoever fills this space first has a disadvantage, because the other player would free. So if black fills here, then the white beetle would be free. If white fills here, the black beetle will be free. A bit like what happens with rings normally. But this is not always the case, because there are some structure where this C shape has, like, the pieces in the C shape are different colors. So if the two pieces in the middle are, let's say, white, and the two pieces outside are black, then that kind of shape is good for white, because the piece in the middle can be free at the cost of one. So you have the chance later on to do an exchange 1 for 2, or 2 for 1, how you want to call it, 2 for 1. So you fill this X space and you free these two pieces in the middle. Now you can't really do that unless there are other, unless you change the shape of the hive. Actually, there is a way to do it. Can you think of a way? Let's say white wants to free this beetle, okay, but without freeing the ant. What would you do?
You do a triple pin on the ant.
Yes, correct. So, okay, now it's black to move. Well, I don't know, let's say black just place this. So you go for a bidirectional pin. Or yeah, triple pin, or whatever you want to call it. which is again 3 elbows together, but the particular thing of the bidirectional pin is that you need to fill twice, like two elbows. If you just fill one elbow, this ant in the middle is not, well, in this case the ant is never free, but if in the bidirectional pin there was a ladybug or a hopper or a beetle, then you would need to fill at least 2 spaces, right? Or 2 elbows. If there is a spider or an ant or queen, it doesn't matter. So this is perfect for trapping queen, perfect for trapping ants, spider as well, but I mean you don't want, like, there's not much point in trapping spider, is a bit less relevant, but still. So whenever you find this shape with an, like, or you can create this shape with an ant inside or the queen inside, it's usually a good sign, or I mean it's something you can exploit later on, you can take advantage of later on, and I'll show you a game later about this actually. But yeah, so the point is now white can fill the space X using a hopper, for example, and freeing the beetle. Of course, the shape of the hive will change quite a lot. The interesting thing is that you also create another elbow. So that's why I said at the beginning the elbow shapes are more interesting. Like linear shapes, they require a lot of pieces to change. But the elbow shape, you can fill it and then create another one and then fill another one, and then the game becomes more and more complicated and more fun. Anyway, sorry, I'm talking a lot. What did I want? Wait a second, what did I want to do? Okay, well, white decided to free the beetle straight away, but I think the point is to create another elbow, but I'm not sure. I don't like much this move because black could just reposition the ant. I guess, I don't know, Quadribet decided that he was not that important. Actually, I don't know how this game ended. I don't remember how this game ended, so. Okay, the queen goes away and creates this other. I mean, this pocket is actually not usable, right? So it's not. But again, if black decide to go down with the beetle, this is great for white again because white has the control of the internal pieces of the pillars. I don't know how to call them. So the beetle has to go all the way around, has to actually walk on the pocket. Again, black use a pocket again. I mean, not sure why. Yeah, I guess this hopper had the idea of jumping to the left, but anyway, black has a pseudo-pocket or a pocket. Now it's a real pocket. Fine. I want to show you another game as well. Game I want to show you. So I don't know if you have seen this opening before. White has this, puts the pieces in line, but the idea is just to wait for black to place the queen. And then white forces a C opening, so where the two queens are on the same side. And the point is that white can create a gate here and an Hex Trap, and at the same time, like white the mosquito, because now placing a pill bug here, the pill bug can be used offensively, and also the mosquito can be used defensively. So these two spaces here can be controlled by the mosquito. So white can defend and attack at the same time, sort of. So, but the thing I wanted to show you is that often when this sort of structure happen, so basically this is a big X trap, or I think he would call it a cave. I call it a cave. I like the term cave because it gives you that feeling, right? It's like the spaces in the middle are the empty, the void in the cave. But no, let me get to the point. Okay, the point was that if you look at here now, we have a pocket. Black has a pocket, but there are also two bidirectional pins. And this is pretty important because this is the moment where you can make use of a ring. So white played this move, and then black shift the pin to pin the beetle. I mean, it's not a big deal because white has another beetle, but a better move or a more interesting move would have been what? What would you play if you're white? This is one bidirectional pin, and this is another bidirectional pin. Go for a beetle. The hopper doesn't have much. Like, what would you?
He's offensive.
Happen if black fills the pocket? Now you don't have bidirectional pin anymore. So what do you do next? Like, again, like you have to use a beetle eventually because the pillbug is here, right? So we have to neutralize the pillbug. That is
True.
the number one thing you have to think about. So the mosquito has beetle power. You can also keep going. I've seen. Oh, sorry. No, that's not what I wanted to do. So I've seen games where something like this happened. I don't know, black keeps playing, maybe wants to replace the pin. And white spawn another beetle. So like black has to be careful because this spawn point is pretty good. It can be used very like effectively. And the mosquito can get up, and now this is a spawn point as well. So white could actually recreate the ring, placing like with a direct drop. Now also, it doesn't matter if like the black queen cannot escape, even if black would complete the pocket. There's still bidirectional pin, or it doesn't matter the one on the queen, but the one on the black ladybug matters still. So probably black now would have to change the shape of the hive a bit, maybe something like this to control the spawn point. And now white has to come up with something a bit more, I don't know, something more fun. But again, the black ladybug is in this bidirectional pin. The black ladybug cannot move. Also, white has created a pocket here as a side effect of the last move. Of course, the beetle is also in a bidirectional pin, so it's not super fun for white. And the white ant here as well. But you can fix this just placing another piece there, for example. So just saying that whenever there is a chance, that whenever you see a bidirectional pin, if you can make it work somehow to create a ring, then yeah, then I would do it. I would at least consider it. In this game, white I think won anyway, but he didn't use the rings at all. What happened? No, white actually played the beetle here. This was the game. I mean, it worked out eventually in the end, but I think there was also this other mistake. The black covered his own queen, which means that the black queen cannot escape anymore. And now this beetle is free, and the mosquito is free as well. Actually, this is interesting because it's again, it's a C shape, but like you create a C shape rather than with the piece already in the middle. rather than having the C shape and placing something in the middle. So you have to be careful also the way these shapes are created. Some of these are just created in that way, and then you put something in the middle. Some other are created as you go on. So let's go quickly to the rest of the game. Again, this white hand is in a bidirectional pin, so this white hand is not going to get away, but it's still a good exchange for white, because also this black hand and this black hand are not getting away. It's basically 2 for 1. Another thing we probably have to see another time is the end game. Now white has covered the white queen, sorry, the black queen. White attacks. Black defend, although maybe okay, this is fine. Again, an elbow. So free the mosquito. I'm not sure why I played this move. Okay, well, create another pocket for a direct drop, basically.
So my thoughts on why maybe he played that move is he's then forcing him to not be able to free his ant, because if he did, he would just release his beetle.
So he would. So what? Why say so? Say again. So
The only thing that I can see beneficial is with that ant to the upper right of the white beetle is now black can't free.
Oh yeah. You're right. You're right.
Can't pen swap without freeing the beetle.
You're right. You're right. So this would be a good exchange for white, because again, white would cover the black ant, and well, this mosquito is free, but well, I don't know. Let's say white black plays a random move. Now we can think about, again, you have the C shape, but this is convenient for white because white has an ant here and black has only a hopper. So when you free this, it's actually good for white. More like it's better for white than for black. And you can exchange a spider, for example, for an ant. I mean, I'm assuming that the black now doesn't interfere with this, but because like all these kind of shapes are of course are useful in the middle game, but they are also, that it's important to have a look at this in the with the perspective of the end game, right? Like if we get into an end game, if none of us has enough pieces to surround the opponent queen, who's gonna have more pieces in the long term? That's another thing that should be always thought. Of course, it's, you know, there are other things that comes to mind normally. If I have to attack, I have to defend, the tempo, and yeah, all sorts of things. But shapes have influence on every stage of the game, from the opening to the end game, and it's basically why Hive exists, right? If you could put a piece here in the middle of nowhere, then it wouldn't be. I mean, there would be other kind of shapes. The game would be different. So maybe the elbow wouldn't be that important. It would be all different. Okay. Do you have a game you want to analyze quickly? Although it's already, what time? We've been here already 40 minutes. I've been talking for 40 minutes, sorry. That's a good question. And I think there are two important things. First is the one I was talking about now, so the shapes that you create. And it's hard to like predict what kind of shapes are useful in the future, but yeah, with experience, like you see the certain shapes are, like if you have these C shapes, you will feel at some point that okay, this is good for white because there's an ant here. Or when you make a pin, you will think, do I want a straight pin or do I want an elbow pin? Also in the perspective of the endgame. But the other thing is actually the quality of the pieces, the quality of the material you have. What I mean is, during the middle game, especially if you are in a race, like everyone is attacking the other queen, what matters is that you have enough pieces and you can reach the opponent kill spots to fill the queen. It doesn't matter what piece you're using. So it's more democratic. But in the end game, actually, which pieces you have free matters a lot. Like having a free ant is 10 times better than having a free spider in the end game. Maybe in the middle game doesn't matter because, I mean, of course, it's always better to have an ant compared to a spider. But a spider could be a good threat still. You can still use a spider to threaten to win, right? Or use an hopper. But in the end game, the difference is amplified. So the ants and the beetles become so much better. So what you do usually in the end game is try to increase the quality of your pieces. So you do this kind of trades. You make sure that your ants are free, and even if you invest a spider, sometimes even if you invest 2 pieces for an ant, it's worth it. And this is because in end games you want like many times you can win end games by Zugzwang, which is basically forcing your opponent to make a bad move. And to force your opponent to do that, you need to maximize the number of flexible pieces for you and minimize the number of flexible pieces for your opponent. So you want the maximum number of ants, and your opponent has to have the minimum number of ants. Basically, this is the. Without an example now, it's a bit. I hope I've been clear, but I can show you actually something from my game with Epic Kiwi, for example. Patrick is a super strong player from Sweden and is also famous for his endgames. He is very, I call him the Python, because he squeezes you very slowly in the endgame. And sometimes it takes like 50, 100 moves to get to the end. But this is because there are like tiny advantages that they add up, and eventually you win. But you have to basically force your opponent to make some bad move. So in the opening you can still like sacrifice some ants to get, for example, beetles on top of the hive to create some sort of structure that you need, to free some other pieces. You can use hopper and spiders for threats, but in the end game, an ant is definitely worth more. Let me find something. But okay, I mean it's a bit complicated now to go through. I mean it will take a lot of time. So far it was kind of okay. I had a mosquito working like an ant, and white had an ant here. So I didn't have I wasn't doing particularly bad. I had 2 free ants. But white managed to squeeze me slowly. See again.
He's got a white ring.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he created a ring because he wanted to free the ant. And I tried to stop him. I mean, I stopped like this. But he throws the spider in. There's another thing in general. So you most of the time, unless the game is very chaotic, you can distinguish like a core structure of the hive, like let's say the longest chain, and then from there, all the pieces have to move around, sort of, right? So you don't want your pieces in the core because that means they will be stuck, right? So whenever you can exchange one of your pieces for your opponent piece in the core structure is good. So here, for example, the white ladybug is part of the core structure. You put a spider in, now the ladybug is free. Move on, move on. So white is trying to block in all my ants. I also played probably not very good here. I mean, white is trying to free another ant. All this maneuver. I mean, also mosquito as a beetle is pretty good. But I mean, now I have a free ant, but it's basically the only free thing I have. He has 2 free pieces. So of course the material is important as well, but you'll see now that the main point will be the white, the white freeze an ant. And now I don't have any, well, I mean, yeah, I could do this, but he can, again, was an elbow, freeze the ant to an elbow. And now he has a free ant, I don't have any free ant. And now it's game over. Now there's nothing to do. I could just, it's just agony. So you you try to pin all the ants of your opponent until he doesn't have any move available, or if they have some move available, you try to make sure that these moves are bad. Yeah, there's not much to do here. Okay, so I don't know if I answer your question, but the main thing is try to limit the options of your opponent. That's the thing. And the piece that has the most option is the ant, so usually you go for that first. And then the rest. But how to transition into the end game, yeah, that's another story. Like how to think, oh, is this gonna be good in the end game? Yeah, that's of course when I was in this position, I wasn't thinking about the end game yet. I mean, I had no idea about that. But another thing about shapes in general, as I said, is that the core structure of the hive should not include many of your pieces. That's why you don't see many structure in line. Like this, I think 4 pieces in line, like this ladybug, queen, hopper, and ant, is probably the furthest you can go. If you have 5 pieces in a line, that's definitely not good. I mean, this one was already not very good for me, but I think it was okay, it was playable. I made other mistake for sure. But if you start to have more than 4 pieces, like 5 pieces, that's pretty bad. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces basically. I can still make an exchange and free some pieces. Free, like if I take this space here, if I move the hopper using the pillback, for example, I will make a ring and free 2 of my pieces, right? The queen and the hopper. But yeah, otherwise it's not good. I decided to go for this, but probably was not a good idea. I probably should have played this. I mean, this is free, but you can also think about throwing the queen into this elbow here. And then you have a free pillbug. Of course, your queen might suffer, but at least you have a free pillbug. So yeah, there are a few things to consider, but generally, if you look, if you review all games by Happy Kiwi, is like a master of these things. It's crazy. He, yeah, he's. I think he claimed that there's no draw in Hive. All the games are always, like, they can always be won in a way. if you have enough patience. I don't know if this is true, but also Einorman43, this other American guy who won, who got to the final and he lost at the end against Judoka. He's pretty good with this kind of games. But yeah, it's a whole topic per se, I think. Because the other thing compared to chess, I don't remember if you played chess before, or, like it's in chess it's easier to categorize endgames because you have less pieces. You have 4 pieces there, 5 pieces, 7 at most. So you can say, okay, I have bishop against the bishop with 2 pawns. In Hive, it's very hard to categorize it. At least I don't know of anyone who has put some effort or thought about how to categorize it properly. I think Judoka has another book in the pipeline eventually, like the 3rd of the trilogy, about endgames, but I don't know if it's endgames or just finishing sequence in general. He calls them finishing sequences, which means basically the last few moves of the game. But it probably means more about how to find the successful, like, winning move when you are in the middle game, for example, not long sequences of move or long maneuvers. But I don't know. So yeah, this is it. I think we've been here an hour, right? Yeah. Because again, another thing we haven't talked about, but whenever you place an ant, I like to think about it in this way. You always have like a static and a dynamic function of a move, right? So you place an ant because you want to use it to attack something else, but also because he actually creates a sort of shape. So it creates an elbow, it could create a pseudopocket or something like that. And you have to be ready, at least in the opening, during the end game, for this ant to be pinned. Most of the time there is always that choice, so you have to sacrifice it and you have to do it efficiently. You basically have to give a choice to your opponent. If you pin it, then okay, my ant is still good because it creates a shape that I like, or at least is not as bad. If you don't pin it, okay, then I use it dynamically, actively. So if your moves have this double purpose, then like it will improve definitely the game. That's the way I see it.
It's a good way to think about it.
Just like be efficient, and also in Hive is basically unavoidable to do some sacrifices, because in the first 10 moves, I mean, you can also play some games without much pinning, but there's always the tension of the pinning, right? There's always 3 or 4 ants in play, so the pin could happen. Maybe it doesn't happen for some reason, but many times it happens, and you have to be ready for that. So you just have to choose how to do it, basically. So what shape you want to create in the end. Okay. Cool. I hope it was nice and it was useful. And but yeah, by next time you'll be already 300, so we'll talk about something else.